In today's video, we're embarking on an epic journey through some of the most significant wars in human history. From the legendary Trojan War that inspired countless tales to the modern conflicts that have shaped our world today. The Trojan War. Let's start in ancient Greece with the legendary Trojan War. Famed by Homer in the Iliad, this war between the Greeks and the city of Troy began when Helen, the wife of Spartan king Menelaus, was taken by Paris of Troy. This sparked a decade-long siege. The war ended with the cunning use of the Trojan horse, a large wooden horse housing Greek soldiers, which allowed them to infiltrate and ultimately conquer Troy. The Persian Wars. Jumping ahead to the Persian Wars, we see Greek city-states uniting against the powerful Persian Empire. The conflict began with the Ionian Revolt and saw significant battles like Marathon, where the outnumbered Athenians achieved a stunning victory. These wars showcased Greek resilience, preserved their independence, and laid the foundation for Western civilization. The Peloponnesian War. Next, the Peloponnesian War was a brutal civil war between Athens and Sparta and their respective allies. This protracted conflict drained resources, decimated populations, and ended with Athens' fall, marking the end of its golden age. Key events included the disastrous Sicilian expedition, where Athenian forces suffered a catastrophic defeat. The Punic Wars. The Punic Wars were a trio of conflicts between Rome and Carthage, the dominant powers of the Western Mediterranean. These wars featured legendary generals like Hannibal, who famously crossed the Alps with his war elephants, and Scipio Africanus, who defeated Hannibal at the Battle of Zama. The wars concluded with Rome's dominance and the complete destruction of Carthage. The Gallic Wars. Julius Caesar's conquest of Gaul expanded Rome's territory and bolstered his political career. These wars are notable for Caesar's tactical genius and the brutal subjugation of the Gallic tribes. The conquest of Gaul significantly increased Caesar's wealth and power, setting the stage for his subsequent rise to dictatorship and the end of the Roman Republic. The Roman Civil Wars. Rome's internal power struggles, known as the Roman Civil Wars, featured major figures like Caesar, Pompey, and Octavian. These conflicts transitioned Rome from republic to empire, fundamentally changing its governance. The wars began with Caesar crossing the Rubicon, declaring war on the Senate. The Arab-Byzantine Wars. The Arab-Byzantine Wars were a series of conflicts between the Byzantine Empire and various Muslim caliphates. Spanning several centuries, these wars were marked by sieges, naval battles, and shifting frontiers, significantly impacting the Middle East's political landscape. The Viking Wars. During the Viking Age, Norse warriors raided and settled across Europe. Their expeditions to the British Isles, Francia, and beyond profoundly affected European culture and politics. The Viking invasions of England led to significant changes, including the establishment of the Danelaw and the eventual unification of England under Alfred the Great. The Crusades. The Crusades were religious wars initiated by the Latin Church to reclaim the Holy Land from Muslim rule. Knights, kings, and commoners embarked on perilous journeys, leading to centuries of conflict and cultural exchange between Europe and the Middle East. The 100 Years' War. The 100 Years' War between England and France was a prolonged struggle over the French throne's succession. Figures like Joan of Arc emerged, inspiring French forces and turning the tide of the war. The conflict saw significant battles like Agincourt, where English longbowmen decimated French knights. The Italian Wars. The Italian Wars involved major European powers like France, Spain, and the Holy Roman Empire vying for control of the Italian peninsula. These conflicts witnessed modern warfare tactics rise, such as the use of gunpowder and professional standing armies. The wars were marked by significant battles like Pavia, where Charles V captured the French king Francis I. The sack of Rome in 1527 by Charles V's troops symbolized the devastating impact of these wars. The Ottoman-Habsburg Wars. Spanning over 300 years, the Ottoman-Habsburg Wars saw the Ottoman Empire and the Habsburg monarchy battling for dominance in Eastern Europe. Famous sieges like Vienna marked this prolonged struggle. The wars reflected the broader struggle between Islam and Christianity, impacting European politics and society. The 30 Years' War. One of Europe's most devastating conflicts, the 30 Years' War began as a religious dispute within the Holy Roman Empire, but expanded into a broader political struggle. The war reshaped Europe's political boundaries and introduced the concept of state sovereignty through the Peace of Westphalia. Key battles included the Battle of White Mountain and the Battle of Breitenfeld. The war's brutality and widespread destruction led to significant loss of life and economic hardship. The English Civil War. The English Civil War saw royalists loyal to King Charles I clash with parliamentarians. This war led to the temporary overthrow of the monarchy, the execution of Charles I, and the establishment of the Commonwealth under Oliver Cromwell. The Great Northern War. The Great Northern War saw a coalition led by Russia challenge Sweden's supremacy in Northern Europe, ending with the Treaty of Nystad and marking Russia's rise as a major European power. The War of Spanish Succession. fought over the Spanish throne's succession. The War of Spanish Succession involved most of Europe's great powers. It concluded with the Treaty of Utrecht, redrawing Europe's map and ending French dominance ambitions. The 7 Years' War. Considered the first global conflict, the 7 Years' War saw battles in Europe, North America, India, and the Caribbean. It significantly altered colonial holdings and set the stage for future conflicts, including the American Revolution. The American Revolutionary War. The American Revolutionary War saw the 13 colonies in North America fight for independence from Great Britain. This war led to the United States' creation and profoundly impacted global politics and colonialism. The Napoleonic Wars. Led by Napoleon Bonaparte, the Napoleonic Wars reshaped Europe with significant battles like Austerlitz and Waterloo. Napoleon's defeat led to the Congress of Vienna and the redrawing of Europe. The War of 1812. The War of 1812 between the United States and Great Britain involved naval battles and frontier skirmishes. Ending in a stalemate, it fostered a sense of American national identity and influenced future U.S. foreign policy. The Crimean War. The Crimean War saw an alliance of Britain, France, and the Ottoman Empire against Russia, highlighting the need for military and medical reforms, and remembered for the charge of the Light Brigade. The American Civil War. The American Civil War was a brutal conflict between the Northern States Union and the Southern States Confederacy. It ended with slavery's abolition and significant social, economic, and political changes in the United States. The Franco-Prussian War. The Franco-Prussian War between France and Prussia resulted in Germany's unification and Napoleon III's downfall, dramatically altering Europe's power balance. The Russo-Japanese War. The Russo-Japanese War was a conflict over territorial ambitions in East Asia, marking the first time an Asian power defeated a European power in modern warfare, signaling Japan's rise as a major force. World War I. World War I, or the Great War, involved most of the world's great powers divided into the Allies and the Central Powers. The war saw unprecedented trench warfare and mechanized combat, leading to massive casualties and significant geopolitical changes. The Russian Civil War. Following the Russian Revolution, the Russian Civil War was fought between the Red Army, Bolsheviks, and the White Army, anti-Bolsheviks. The Bolshevik victory established the Soviet Union, which became a major global player in the 20th century. The Spanish Civil War. The Spanish Civil War, a precursor to World War II, saw Republicans fight against nationalists led by Francisco Franco. The conflict drew international involvement and had significant political ramifications. World War II. World War II was the deadliest and most widespread conflict in history, involving over 30 countries and resulting in an estimated 85 million fatalities. The war saw the rise and fall of the Axis powers and led to significant geopolitical changes, including the Cold War. The Korean War. The Korean War saw North Korea, supported by China and the Soviet Union, fighting against South Korea, backed by United Nations forces, primarily the United States. The war ended in an armistice, with Korea remaining divided along the 38th parallel. The Vietnam War. The Vietnam War saw North Vietnam, supported by its communist allies, fighting against South Vietnam and its principal ally, the United States. The war was highly controversial and had a lasting impact on American politics and society. The Six-Day War. The Six-Day War between Israel and its neighboring Arab countries, Egypt, Jordan, and Syria, resulted in a swift and decisive Israeli victory, reshaping the Middle East's geopolitical landscape. The Yom Kippur War. The Yom Kippur War saw Israel fighting a coalition of Arab states led by Egypt and Syria. Despite being caught by surprise, Israel managed to repel the invaders, leading to shifts in Middle Eastern alliances and subsequent peace negotiations. The Iran-Iraq War. The Iran-Iraq War was a prolonged and bloody conflict between neighboring Iran and Iraq, marked by trench warfare and chemical weapons use. The war ended in a stalemate, with significant casualties and economic devastation for both countries. The Falklands War. The Falklands War was a 10-week conflict between Argentina and the United Kingdom over the Falkland Islands. The war ended in a British victory, reaffirming UK sovereignty over the islands. The Gulf War. The Gulf War, also known as Operation Desert Storm, was a coalition effort led by the United States to expel Iraqi forces from Kuwait. The conflict highlighted modern military technology and coalition warfare's effectiveness. The Bosnian War. The Bosnian War was a brutal conflict following Yugoslavia's breakup, involving ethnic cleansing and significant international intervention. It ended with the Dayton Agreement, establishing Bosnia and Herzegovina as a single state composed of two entities. The Kosovo War. The Kosovo War involved ethnic conflict between the Federal Republic of Yugoslavia and the Kosovo Liberation Army, with NATO intervention. The war ended with NATO bombing campaign and Kosovo's eventual independence. The war in Afghanistan. initiated in response to the 9/11 attacks. The war in Afghanistan aimed to dismantle al-Qaeda and remove the Taliban from power. It became the longest war in U.S. history, marked by prolonged insurgency and efforts to build a stable Afghan state. The Iraq War. The Iraq War, or the Second Gulf War, began with the U.S.-led invasion to overthrow Saddam Hussein. The conflict led to a prolonged insurgency and significant political instability in the region. The Syrian Civil War. The Syrian Civil War started as part of the Arab Spring protests and evolved into a complex conflict involving multiple factions and international interventions, resulting in a humanitarian crisis and significant regional instability. The Yemeni Civil War. The Yemeni Civil War is a multi-sided conflict involving the Yemeni government, Houthi rebels, and various other factions, with significant Saudi and Iranian involvement. The war has caused a severe humanitarian crisis, with millions in need of aid. The Israel-Gaza conflict. The Israel-Gaza conflict, rooted in mid-20th century disputes, saw modern violent clashes starting with the First Intifada in 1987 and intensifying after Hamas took control of Gaza in 2007. Both conflicts have led to significant casualties and international concern. Efforts for lasting peace in both regions remain unresolved. The Russia-Ukraine War. The Russia-Ukraine War began in February 2022 with Russia's invasion of Ukraine, escalating tensions since Russia annexed Crimea in 2014. This conflict has caused significant casualties and displacement, drawing international condemnation and sanctions against Russia. Ukraine, supported by Western allies, continues to resist and aims to reclaim its territories. I hope you enjoyed this deep dive into the battles, leaders, and events that have shaped our world. If you found this video informative and engaging, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so you won't miss any of our upcoming historical explorations.